The story opens with Ambassador David Reed standing before the massive crystal doors of the Galactic Council chambers on Station Alpha Prime. He represents Earth, the newest member species in a galaxy dominated by ancient civilizations. The human delegation consists of only 3 people: David, military advisor Colonel James Park, and translator Lisa Wong. The Galactic Council has ruled the galaxy for over 10,000 years. 12 major species control everything: trade routes, resource allocation, military movements, and diplomatic relations. Humans have been members for barely 5 years, considered little more than primitive newcomers by the established powers. The peace talks concern the ongoing Rim Wars, a brutal conflict between the Council's forces and rebel colonies on the galaxy's outer edge. For 3 years, the rebels have been fighting for independence, claiming the Council exploits outer rim worlds while giving them no real voice in governance. The Council invited humans to participate only because Earth sits strategically between Council space and the rebel territories. As David enters the Grand Chamber, he sees the other delegates already seated around the massive hexagonal table. The Altaran representative, Ambassador Keth, nods coldly. The Altarans are tall, blue-skinned beings who pride themselves on logic and order. Next to him sits the Vorthan delegate, General Vex, whose insectoid features show obvious disdain for the human presence. The session begins with formal presentations. Each species outlines their position on ending the conflict. The Altarans propose crushing the rebels through economic sanctions. The Vorthans suggest direct military action to destroy rebel leadership. The crystalline Etherians recommend using their psychic abilities to force compliance. When David's turn comes, he stands slowly. He explains that humans have studied the conflict extensively. The rebels aren't terrorists or criminals. They're colonists who've been systematically exploited for decades. Their worlds provide raw materials that fuel Council prosperity, yet they receive almost nothing in return. No representation, no fair trade agreements, no protection from raiders. The Council members exchange glances. Ambassador Keth speaks first, his voice carrying centuries of authority. He explains that the Galactic Order has maintained peace and prosperity for millennia. The rebels threaten this stability. They must be brought into line, by force if necessary. David listens quietly as each delegate speaks. The pattern becomes clear. Every proposed solution involves forcing the rebels to submit. Nobody discusses addressing their legitimate grievances. Nobody mentions the exploitation that started the conflict. The human ambassador realizes something profound. These aren't peace talks. They're planning sessions for the rebels' destruction. The Council invited Earth not for wisdom or mediation, but because they want to use human space as a staging ground for their final assault on the Rim worlds. David looks around the table one more time. He sees beings who claim to represent advanced civilizations, yet they cannot conceive of solving problems without force or coercion. They view the rebels as property that has forgotten its place. He thinks about Earth's own history. The revolutions, the fights for independence, the struggles against oppression. Humans understand what drives people to rebel. Sometimes, the only way to gain respect is to stand up to bullies, even when they're bigger and stronger. The discussion continues around him, but David has heard enough. These ancient civilizations may be technologically superior, but they've grown stagnant and arrogant. They cannot imagine that a younger species might see solutions they've missed. As Ambassador Keth begins outlining the timeline for military operations, David makes his decision. He stands up slowly, gathering his papers. The chamber falls silent as all eyes turn to him. Ambassador Reed, General Vex clicks irritably. "We have not dismissed this session." David looks directly at him, then at each council member in turn. His voice is calm but firm when he speaks. "No, you haven't dismissed the session, but I'm dismissing myself from it." The silence stretches for long moments. In 10,000 years of council history, no delegate has ever walked out of official proceedings. The concept is so foreign that several aliens simply stare in confusion. David continues gathering his materials. Colonel Park and Lisa Wong follow his lead, both understanding that something significant is happening. The human delegation moves toward the exit as whispers begin among the council members. At the chamber doors, David pauses and turns back. His words carry clearly across the vast room. When you're ready to discuss actual peace instead of planning conquest, you know where to find us. The crystal doors close behind the humans with a soft chime, leaving the Galactic Council in stunned silence. For the first time in centuries, someone has challenged their authority directly. The implications will ripple across the galaxy in ways none of them can yet imagine. The news spreads across the galaxy faster than light-speed communications. Within hours, every major news network carries the story. The headline appears in dozens of languages across thousands of worlds. Human ambassador walks out of Galactic Council peace talks. On Earth, President Martinez calls an emergency cabinet meeting. The communication from Alpha Prime arrived just minutes ago. A formal protest from the Council demanding an explanation for Ambassador Reed's unprecedented breach of diplomatic protocol. The message carries barely concealed threats about Earth's continued membership in galactic civilization. Defense Secretary Williams reviews intelligence reports flooding in from across human space. Council military assets are moving toward Earth's borders. Trade agreements are being reconsidered. Several minor species that relied on Earth for food exports have suddenly found technical difficulties with their contracts. But not all the news is bad. Reports arrive from the Rim worlds. Rebel colonies are celebrating. For the first time, someone stood up to the Council on their behalf. Recruitment for rebel forces surges as word spreads that humans refuse to participate in their destruction. Meanwhile, on Alpha Prime, the Council chambers remain in chaos. Ambassador Kef paces before the great viewing window, his blue skin darker with anger. In his 300 years of service, he has never encountered such insubordination. The galactic order depends on respect for authority. If humans can simply walk away from their obligations, what prevents others from doing the same? General Vex clicks his mandibles nervously. The Vorthan military has fought rebels for 3 years without decisive victory. They counted on using human space stations as forward bases. Without Earth's cooperation, their supply lines become dangerously extended. The Etherian delegate, Prime Crystal Luz, projects waves of disturbance. Her species communicates through shared thoughts and emotions. The human ambassador's actions created something she's never encountered, a complete rejection of their collective authority. It disturbs the psychic harmony her people value above all else. Emergency sessions convene as council members debate their response. Some demand immediate action against Earth. The humans are too new, too primitive to challenge established order. They must be made an example of before other species get similar ideas, but others urge caution. Humans may be newcomers, but they've proven surprisingly adaptable. Their technology advances rapidly, and their military, while small, has shown unexpected effectiveness in recent conflicts. More importantly, several allied species have begun asking uncomfortable questions about the peace talks. The Centauran delegate, Ambassador Thor, raises concerns that many share privately. His people have watched the Rim world situation with growing unease. The rebels' grievances aren't entirely without merit. The current system does favor core worlds at the expense of frontier colonies. These quiet doubts become louder after the human walkout. If Earth can question Council authority, perhaps it's time others did the same. Private communications increase between species that rarely coordinated before. Junior delegates share concerns their superiors have ignored for decades. On the rebel worlds, military commander Captain Rex calls together his staff officers. The human action changes everything about their strategic situation. For 3 years, they'd fought a losing war of attrition. The Council's resources seemed endless, their victory inevitable. But humans walking out of peace talks sends a clear message. Earth won't participate in rebel destruction. More importantly, it suggests humans might be willing to help in other ways. Rex begins planning diplomatic outreach to Earth, something that seemed impossible just days ago. Back on Earth, Ambassador Reed faces intense questioning from government officials. Some accuse him of destroying Earth's position in galactic politics. Others worry about economic retaliation or military threats. A few suggest he should return immediately and apologize. Reed remains calm under pressure. He explains his reasoning carefully. The Council wasn't seeking peace, they were planning genocide. Staying would have made Earth complicit in the destruction of innocent colonies. Walking out preserved both human honor and strategic flexibility. Colonel Park supports his ambassador's decision. Military intelligence suggests the Council's position isn't as strong as they pretend. The Rim Wars have drained their resources more than they admit. Several allied species show signs of war fatigue. The rebels have proven harder to defeat than expected. As the first day after the walkout ends, patterns begin emerging. Traditional Council allies express private doubts about the conflict. Neutral species watch Earth carefully, wondering if humans represent a new model for galactic relations. The rebels prepare diplomatic overtures while strengthening their defenses. Most significantly, junior species throughout the galaxy begin asking questions their leaders find difficult to answer. Why should ancient civilizations automatically rule over younger ones? What gives the Council the right to exploit frontier worlds? If humans can walk away from unfair agreements, why can't others do the same? The human ambassador's simple act of leaving a room has started something much larger. A galaxy-wide questioning of the established order that has ruled for 10,000 years. 3 days after the walkout, the Galactic Council faces its first real crisis in centuries. Emergency sessions run around the clock as representatives struggle to contain the growing diplomatic disaster. What started as human insubordination has become a galaxy-wide questioning of Council authority. Ambassador Keth studies intelligence reports with growing alarm. 7 minor species have formally requested clarification of the Rim world situation. The Andrian Federation, previously loyal allies, sent a diplomatic note expressing concern about civilian casualties in rebel territories. Most disturbing, the Ta Collective has begun conducting independent fact-finding missions to disputed colonies. The economic pressure is mounting too. Several trade cartels have suspended operations pending political stability. The Merchant Guild, backbone of galactic commerce, reports significant disruptions as member species reconsider their positions. Even the banking consortium has frozen certain military funding pending risk assessment. General Vex brings worse news from the military front. Rebel activity has increased dramatically since the human walkout. Colonial militias that previously remained neutral are now actively supporting rebel forces. Intelligence suggests several worlds are preparing to formally declare independence from Council rule. More troubling, Council military recruitment has slowed. Young soldiers from allied species are asking difficult questions about the war's purpose. Desertion rates have increased, and several units have requested reassignment away from Rim world operations. The Etherian representative struggles with unprecedented psychic discord. Prime Crystal Luz has always maintained harmony through shared consciousness, but the network now carries disturbing emotions. Doubt, anger, and something she's never encountered before. The concept of justified rebellion. Meanwhile, Earth's position strengthens daily. President Martinez receives diplomatic communications from dozens of species. Some offer quiet support for the human stance. Others request private meetings to discuss mutual concerns about galactic governance. A few even hint at potential military cooperation. The rebel colonies move quickly to capitalize on the situation. Captain Rex leads a diplomatic mission to neutral space, seeking formal recognition of rebel legitimacy. For the first time, several species agree to meet with rebel representatives. The Council's characterization of rebels as terrorists becomes harder to maintain when they conduct themselves as legitimate diplomats. Human intelligence networks, previously limited and basic, suddenly find new sources of information. Species that once ignored Earth now share strategic assessments. The picture that emerges contradicts Council propaganda about the conflict. The Rim worlds aren't terrorist havens or criminal colonies. They're legitimate settlements that developed independently while the Council ignored them. Their rebellion began only after decades of exploitation and broken promises. Many rebels are actually former Council military officers who refused orders to suppress peaceful protests. Admiral Stone, Earth's top military commander, reviews these intelligence reports with growing understanding. The Council's strength is largely illusion. Their ancient technology is powerful but inflexible. Their military doctrine hasn't evolved in centuries. Most importantly, their authority depends entirely on voluntary compliance, and that compliance is breaking down. The human diplomatic strategy becomes clearer. Earth won't directly support the rebels militarily, but they won't help destroy them either. Instead, humans will provide what the galaxy desperately needs, an alternative model for interspecies relations based on equality rather than hierarchy. Back on Alpha Prime, the Council faces impossible choices. Military action against Earth would validate human claims about Council brutality. It would also be expensive and risky. Humans have proven surprisingly innovative in warfare. Worse, attacking Earth might trigger the larger war they've desperately tried to avoid. Economic sanctions seem safer, but early attempts backfire. Earth's trade partners rally to support human independence. Several species impose counter-sanctions against Council core worlds. The galactic economy, carefully balanced for millennia, begins showing stress fractures. Diplomatic isolation fails too. Instead of becoming pariahs, humans find themselves hosting unprecedented numbers of foreign delegates. Earth becomes the unofficial capital of species, seeking alternatives to Council domination. Ambassador Keth realizes the fundamental problem. The Council assumed their authority was permanent and unquestionable. They never prepared for organized resistance from member species. Their entire governmental system depends on voluntary compliance backed by overwhelming force, but both elements are now failing. The Vorthan military leadership grows desperate. General Vex proposes increasingly extreme solutions: blockade Earth, arrest human diplomats, or simply declare humans enemies of galactic civilization. But each option carries risks the Council can't afford. The Etherian Collective reports something even more disturbing. The psychic network that helped maintain galactic harmony is fragmenting. Species are developing independent thoughts and goals rather than accepting shared Council objectives. The mental unity that reinforced political control is breaking down. As the crisis enters its fourth day, younger Council members begin suggesting the unthinkable. Perhaps it's time to actually listen to the complaints driving this rebellion. Maybe the humans are right about needing fundamental changes in how the galaxy is governed. These suggestions horrify the senior leadership, but they can't ignore the growing support for reform. The human walkout has exposed weaknesses in galactic governance that can no longer be hidden or suppressed. The Unexpected Alliance, 770 words. 1 week after the walkout, the galaxy transforms in ways no one anticipated. What began as a diplomatic crisis has become a fundamental shift in galactic power structures. The old order built on unquestioned Council authority faces challenges from unexpected directions. On the frontier world of Nova Haven, rebel leader Captain Rex meets with human envoy Tom Baker in a small cafe overlooking the colony's main spaceport. The meeting was arranged through back channels, carefully avoiding Council surveillance networks. Rex expected to plead for weapons or military support. Instead, Baker offers something more valuable: legitimacy. Baker explains Earth's position carefully. Humans won't provide military aid that could escalate the conflict into galactic war, but they will recognize rebel colonies as legitimate governments and establish formal diplomatic relations. More importantly, Earth will share the technology and expertise that allowed human colonies to thrive independently. The offer includes agricultural techniques that could end food dependence on Council core worlds, mining technologies for resource self-sufficiency, and communication systems that bypass Council-controlled networks. Most valuable of all, humans offer administrative and legal frameworks for colonial self-governance. Rex understands the implications immediately. Military victory was always unlikely against the Council's superior forces, but economic and political independence makes military conquest pointless. If rebel worlds can survive and prosper without Council support, they become ungovernable regardless of military outcomes. Meanwhile, on the Centauran homeworld, Ambassador Thor faces intense pressure from his own government. The Centaurans have been loyal Council allies for over 1,000 years, but recent events force uncomfortable questions about that loyalty's value. Centauran colonies suffer many of the same problems as rebel worlds: economic exploitation, political marginalization, and military vulnerability. The difference is that Centaurans accepted these conditions as the price of Council membership. Now they wonder if that acceptance was wisdom or weakness. Thor's private communications with human diplomats reveal alternatives his people never considered. Earth's colonial model grants genuine autonomy while maintaining beneficial relationships. Human colonies contribute to Earth's prosperity while retaining control over their own resources and governance. The Centauran government begins quiet negotiations with rebel representatives, seeking to understand their grievances and goals. What they discover challenges decades of Council propaganda about terrorist motivations and criminal activities. On Alpha Prime, the Council leadership faces a crisis they can't solve through traditional means. Ambassador Keth calls for increasingly harsh measures against human sedition, but each proposal meets stronger resistance from allied species. The Andrian Federation formally objects to any military action against Earth. The Ta Collective threatens to withdraw from Council military operations if humans are attacked. Even traditionally loyal species express concerns about the precedent such actions would set. General Vex finds his military options severely constrained. Half his allied species refuse to participate in operations against Earth. The other half demand guarantees that their own colonial populations won't face similar treatment. The unified command structure that made Council military dominance possible is fragmenting. More disturbing news arrives from the Rim worlds. Rebel forces aren't just surviving, they're thriving. Human agricultural advisors have helped several colonies achieve food independence. Mining consultants have identified previously unknown resource deposits. Most importantly, human governmental advisors are helping rebels establish legitimate administrative systems. The psychological impact proves as important as the practical benefits. Colonies that once seemed doomed to eventual defeat now plan for long-term independence. Recruitment surges as hope replaces desperation. Even neutral worlds begin reconsidering their positions. Prime Crystal Luz struggles with unprecedented psychic chaos. The Etherian collective consciousness, stable for millennia, now carries contradictory thoughts and emotions from across the galaxy. Some species project loyalty to traditional order, while others broadcast desires for change. The harmony that defined her people's existence is dissolving. Earth's President Martinez addresses the Human Colonial Congress via subspace link. Her speech carries throughout human space and beyond, reaching audiences the Council can't control. She speaks about fundamental principles, self-determination, economic justice, and the right of all species to control their own destinies. The speech doesn't call for revolution or war. Instead, it offers an alternative vision of galactic civilization based on cooperation rather than domination. Martinez invites all species to join this new model while respecting their choice to maintain traditional relationships if they prefer. The response overwhelms human communication networks. Formal inquiries arrive from 23 species seeking information about human governmental models. Informal contacts multiply exponentially as junior diplomats and military officers reach out to human counterparts. Admiral Stone reviews the strategic situation with growing optimism. Earth doesn't need to defeat the Council militarily. They just need to prove that alternatives exist. Every species that adopts human-style colonial relationships weakens Council authority. Every successful rebel world demonstrates that independence is possible. The galaxy is experiencing its first taste of political pluralism in 10,000 years. Instead of one dominant model imposed from above, multiple approaches to governance and interspecies relations begin emerging. The Council's monopoly on legitimate authority is breaking down, replaced by a marketplace of competing ideas. The human walkout that seemed like diplomatic suicide 1 week ago has become the catalyst for the galaxy's first peaceful revolution. 3 months after Ambassador Reed walked out of the peace talks, the galaxy looks completely different. The revolution that began with a simple act of defiance has reshaped interspecies relations across thousands of worlds. The old order based on council supremacy gives way to something unprecedented, a truly voluntary galactic community. On Earth, President Martinez signs the Terran Independence Charter in a ceremony broadcast across human space and beyond. The document formally establishes Earth's withdrawal from traditional council membership while maintaining peaceful relations with all species. More importantly, it outlines principles for the emerging Galactic Cooperation Alliance, a voluntary association of species committed to mutual respect and shared prosperity. 17 species have already signed preliminary agreements to join the alliance. Unlike the Council's hierarchical structure, the alliance operates on principles of absolute equality. Each member species, regardless of age or technological development, has equal voice in collective decisions. No single group can dominate others through superior numbers or ancient privileges. The Alliance headquarters establishes itself on New Geneva, a neutral space station positioned between traditional Council space and the former rebel territories. Ambassador Reed, now serving as the Alliance's first Secretary General, presides over the initial sessions with representatives from dozens of worlds. The contrast with Council operations is stark. Alliance sessions operate through consensus rather than majority rule. Disputes receive mediation rather than imposed solutions. Most importantly, member species retain complete sovereignty over internal affairs while cooperating on mutual concerns. Captain Rex, now president of the Free Colonies Federation, addresses the Alliance Assembly as its newest member. The former rebel worlds have achieved everything they fought for: genuine independence, economic self-sufficiency, and recognition as legitimate governments. The transformation from desperate rebels to prosperous colonies demonstrates the Alliance model's effectiveness. The free colonies bring valuable resources and strategic locations to the Alliance. Their mining operations provide rare materials without exploitation. Their agricultural worlds feed Alliance populations through fair trade agreements. Their military forces, hardened by years of conflict, provide security for peaceful member species. On Alpha Prime, the Galactic Council faces reality it can no longer ignore. Over half their former members have joined the Alliance or established independent relationships with it. The Rim Wars have effectively ended, not through military victory, but through political irrelevance. The rebels won by making conquest pointless. Ambassador Keth, aged beyond his years by the crisis, finally acknowledges what many suspected. The Council's authority always depended on voluntary compliance. When species stop believing in that authority, military force alone cannot maintain galactic order. The choice becomes adaptation or obsolescence. Progressive Council members, led by Ambassador Thor and supported by younger delegates, proposed fundamental reforms. They suggest transforming the Council from a ruling body into a service organization. Instead of imposing decisions on member species, the reformed Council would facilitate cooperation and provide technical assistance upon request. The proposal triggers fierce debate among traditional Council leadership. General Vex and his supporters argue for maintaining hierarchical authority through superior technology and military strength. They propose demonstrating Council power through decisive action against Alliance worlds. But practical considerations make military solutions impossible. The Council's own allied species refuse to support aggressive actions. Many express private sympathy for Alliance principles. Some openly negotiate with Alliance representatives while maintaining nominal Council membership. Prime Crystal Luz offers the most surprising perspective. The Etherian collective consciousness, previously committed to traditional harmony, has evolved through exposure to diverse viewpoints. She proposes that both organizations can coexist. the Council serving species preferring structured hierarchy, the Alliance accommodating those seeking greater independence. This vision of galactic pluralism gains support from unexpected sources. Several ancient species, including some Council founders, express interest in exploring new approaches to interspecies relations. They recognize that 10,000 years of unchanging governance may have prevented beneficial evolution. The galaxy's economic transformation proceeds rapidly. Alliance worlds develop trade relationships based on mutual benefit rather than colonial exploitation. Resource extraction operates under environmental protections. Manufacturing spreads across multiple worlds instead of concentrating in Council core systems. These changes force Council recognition that their economic model was unsustainable. Exploiting frontier worlds provided short-term benefits while creating long-term instability. The Alliance approach generates slower initial growth but builds lasting prosperity across all member worlds. 12 months after the walkout, Ambassador Reed returns to Alpha Prime for the first Joint Council-Alliance Summit. The meeting occurs in neutral chambers designed to accommodate both hierarchical and consensus-based decision-making processes. The summit's final declaration establishes principles for peaceful coexistence between different governmental models. The galaxy officially becomes multipolar, with room for various approaches to interspecies cooperation. The age of single power dominance ends, replaced by voluntary association based on shared values and mutual respect. Reed's closing remarks capture the transformation's significance. Humans walked out of peace talks not to start a war, but to demonstrate that alternatives exist. Sometimes the most powerful action is simply refusing to accept unacceptable conditions. The galaxy learned that true strength comes not from imposing will on others, but from offering choices worth choosing. The human example proved that even ancient, powerful civilizations must earn respect rather than demand it. The new galactic order begins not with conquest or revolution, but with the simple recognition that all species deserve dignity, autonomy, and the right to determine their own futures.